Have you ever seen a picture of the Leaning Tower of Pisa? It's one of the most famous buildings in the world. It stands in a beautiful green square in Italy, a gleaming white cylinder of marble reaching for the sky, but there's something odd about it, something that makes you hold your breath for a second. It leans. It looks as though a gentle push or a strong gust of wind might send it tumbling. The biggest clue to the tower's mystery lies underground. The city of Pisa is built on soft, unstable soil. Imagine a giant, underground sponge sand clay silt. This is what the tower rests on. For thousands of years, nearby rivers deposited these fine, shifting materials, creating a deep bed of soft ground. On the north side, the soil is more stable and compact. On the south side, the layers are much softer, more compressible and waterlogged. It's like trying to build a heavy sand castle. Firm, damp sand, wet, squishy mud. It's an uneven and unreliable base for any structure. This mix of soils is the true culprit behind the lean. The ground isn't uniform, strong spots, weak spots. The layer of soft clay and sand under the south side is particularly weak. With such tricky soil, you would think the builders would have created a massive, deep foundation to support their tower. But they didn't. The foundation they designed was surprisingly shallow and weak for the immense weight it was meant to hold. It was a circular stone ring, only about 3 meters deep, 10 feet deep. This foundation sat directly on top of that unstable mixture, clay, sand. It was essentially a shallow dish of stone floating on a bowl of geological jelly. For a structure that was planned to be over 180 feet tall, weigh nearly 15,000 tons, this was a critical miscalculation. The foundation was simply not deep enough or wide enough to distribute the tower's enormous weight safely. The problem wasn't just the depth, it was the design itself. The foundation was a hollow ring, which didn't provide a solid, continuous base. The builders of the 12th century did not have the modern scientific understanding of soil mechanics that we have today. They relied on experience, tradition. In many other parts of Europe, a 10-foot foundation would have been more than adequate, firm rock, dense clay, but in the soft alluvial plain of Pisa, it was nowhere near enough. When construction stopped around the year 1178, the tower was just a stump, only 3 stories high, but it was already leaning. The builders and the city officials must have been horrified. Their grand project, intended to showcase the wealth and power of Pisa, was flawed from the start. The halt in construction wasn't just due to the lean. The Republic of Pisa was also engaged in constant battles. Genoa, Florence. War and politics put the bell tower project on the back burner. For nearly a century, the site was abandoned, a monument to an ambitious project gone wrong, tilting ever so slightly to the south. This long interruption, however, was the tower's saving grace. It gave the soil time to breathe and adjust. The weight of the first 3 stories slowly squeezed the water out of the soft clay layers beneath, causing the soil to become more compact and dense. This process strengthened the ground, increasing its ability to bear the load that was already on it. Had the builders continued working without a break, the soft soil would not have had time to stabilize. The added weight of each new floor would have caused the sinking to accelerate, leading to a rapid and catastrophic collapse. The unintended pause was the first, and perhaps most important, rescue of the Tower of Pisa. This period of rest allowed the foundation to settle into a new, albeit tilted equilibrium. When work finally resumed in 1272 under a new architect, Giovanni di Simone, the new generation of builders could see the lean clearly. When construction restarted in 1272, Giovanni di Simone knew he couldn't just keep building straight up. The tower was already leaning, and adding more weight would only make it worse, so he came up with a clever plan to try and correct the tilt. As he built the next few floors, he made the columns taller on one side, he made the arches taller on one side. If you look closely at the tower today, the floors on the north side, the side opposite the lean, are slightly taller. The floors on the south side are slightly shorter. He was trying to make the tower bend back towards the vertical, creating a slight curve in the structure. This ingenious trick worked to an extent. As they added 4 more stories using this method, they managed to shift the tower's center of gravity slightly, slowing the rate of the lean. The tower began to curve upwards, almost like a banana. However, the extra weight of the new marble floors caused the foundation to sink even further. The attempt to straighten the tower actually made the lean worse in the long run. The heavier north side, intended to pull the tower upright, instead acted like a pivot, causing the softer south side to sink even faster. By 1278, After adding these new curved floors, the tower was leaning so alarmingly that construction had to be stopped once again. Another war, this time a crushing defeat for Pisa at the hands of Genoa, put the project on hold for almost another century. For the next 500 years, the Tower of Pisa continued its slow, silent dance with gravity. The lean steadily increased, a few millimeters each year, as the south side continued to sink into the soft clay. By the 20th century, the situation had become critical. The top of the tower was leaning more than 15 feet from where it should have been. Engineers and historians watched with growing alarm. It was no longer a question of if it would fall, but when. In the 1930s, an attempt was made to stabilize the foundation by injecting cement grout into the ground. This effort, however, backfired terribly. The injection of wet concrete under pressure actually disturbed the delicate soil structure and caused the tower to lurch downwards, increasing its lean by a significant amount in just a few days. It was a terrifying moment that showed just how fragile the tower's stability really was. After that, for decades, officials were hesitant to try any major interventions. They attached monitoring equipment, measured the lean constantly, and held their breath, hoping for the best while fearing the worst. The turning point came in the late 1980s. The rate of the lean was accelerating, and computer models predicted that the tower had reached a critical angle. In January of 1990, the Italian government made a drastic decision. For the first time in its 800-year history, the Leaning Tower of Pisa was closed to the public. The International Commission, led by Professor Michel Jamilkowski, spent years studying the tower and the soil beneath it. They knew that past mistakes, like the cement injection, were made by adding weight or by disturbing the ground. Their solution had to be different. It had to be delicate, precise, reversible. After much debate and testing, they settled on a brilliant and counterintuitive idea. To stop the tower leaning further south, they wouldn't push it back north. Instead, they'd carefully remove small amounts of soil from under the north side of the foundation, the higher side. The plan was called soil extraction. By creating small cavities under the north side, the tower's own weight would cause it to settle gently into those gaps. The north side would sink a tiny bit, rotating the whole structure back toward vertical and reducing the dangerous lean, like letting a little air out of the tire on the high side of a leaning car to help it level out. The approach was incredibly subtle. It worked with the tower's weight, not against it, and didn't involve risky pushing or shaking of the fragile structure. Before removing soil, they needed a safety net. In 1993, they took a temporary precaution. They stacked 600 tons of lead ingots on the north side of the base. That counterweight slightly reduced the lean and stabilized the tower while they prepared the main intervention. A few years later, it was replaced by a more elegant temporary system. 10 steel cables anchored deep in the ground, gently pulling the tower northward. The seatbelt for the tower, keeping it from moving unexpectedly during the delicate soil surgery. The soil extraction process began in 1999. It was incredibly slow and meticulous. Long corkscrew-like drills were angled into the ground under the north side of the foundation. Each day the drills ran for a short time, removing just a few pounds of soil. The team monitored movement with a vast array of sensors, lasers, tilt meters, pendulums, that could detect a change of a fraction of a millimeter. They proceeded with extreme caution, removing a little soil, then waiting for the tower to settle, then removing a little more. It was a painstaking, high-stakes operation. The soil extraction method proved to be a spectacular success. Over a period of about 2 years, the team carefully removed around 77 tons of soil from beneath the north side of the foundation. Slowly, gently, precisely as predicted, the tower began to rotate back towards the north. The lean was reduced by about 45 centimeters, or 18 inches. More importantly, it brought the structure back into a safe and stable zone, moving its center of gravity to a much less dangerous position. In December of 2001, after being closed for more than a decade, the Leaning Tower of Pisa was finally reopened to the public. The project was officially declared a success. The engineers had not only stabilized the tower but had done so while preserving its famous lean. They had found the perfect balance between safety and character, ensuring that future generations could continue to marvel at this beautiful architectural anomaly. The work didn't stop there. Even after the main soil extraction was complete, the tower continued to be monitored around the clock. The team found that the tower was not just stable, but was continuing to straighten itself on its own. Very, very slowly. The ground beneath was still settling into its new configuration. The engineers had given the tower a new lease on life. Their work is considered one of the greatest feats of engineering restoration in history. They saved a World Heritage Site with a solution that was both brilliant in its simplicity and breathtaking in its execution. Today, in 2025, the tower is more stable than it has been for centuries. Experts believe that it's now safe for at least another 300 years. The soil extraction project not only rescued the tower, but also provided invaluable lessons for geotechnical engineers around the world. It showed that sometimes, the gentlest, most subtle approach is the most effective. The tower that was once famous for being on the brink of collapse is now a symbol of how human ingenuity can preserve our most precious history. Its lean remains, but the danger is gone. The story of the Leaning Tower of Pisa is more than just a quirky tale about a building that doesn't stand up straight. It's a powerful and timeless lesson about understanding the ground beneath our feet. The medieval builders' greatest mistake was not in their design or their craftsmanship, but in their failure to appreciate the weak, unstable soil they chose to build on. The most beautiful and ambitious structure is only as strong as its foundation. The tower's survival is a story of luck and ingenuity.